The Indiana Fever were back at it Wednesday night, their fourth game of a 6-game homestand that will allow for them to be in their own beds for almost 16 days. They're playing back-to-back games against the champs, the Las Vegas Aces, visiting for their first time this season, doing it all at once. And they were handled by the Aces in their first two meetings, but that was a long time ago. You have to go back to the first couple weeks of the season and then to early July. So that's both before the Olympic break. It's also a time where the Fever are much different, much better continuity, much better talent. And more than anything, they're just playing together. So very interested, obviously, to see what these teams looked like. And for the Aces, they were much healthier coming back here, even though A'ja Wilson was questionable coming into this game. Now, both programs have clinched playoff spots, though seeding is still on the line in heading into this game. And for the Fever, a better chance to understand what it takes to become a champ and what they are made of when you're going against the best that the league has seen over the last several years. Even more, again, it's a 2-game mini-series, so you can approach it like the playoffs. That's how the Fever handled it. You play a game, you adjust, you go learn, and you go back to it, and you play the same team again Friday night. The Fever led 7-0. We saw Becky Hammon, the head coach of the Aces, use a timeout 36 seconds into the game. I thought Rick Carlisle was out here, but no. The champs rose to the top, maintained a lead, was able to distance themselves in the very end for an 86-75 win over the Fever Wednesday night.
We're going to make some adjustments. We can't, A'ja shot probably 10 of her made baskets were at the free throw line. I mean, she was in that high post jumper, so a lot of times that happened in our pick and roll scheme where we were having to come over and help on a chug, and we were having to get back to ours in the corner, so we'll clean that up tomorrow. But then just not allowing people to come in that, aren't able to, put up these kind of numbers. We can't let those players come in and be relevant.
Yeah, obviously a tough night shooting the ball. It's gonna happen, it's basketball. One of those nights, overall, I didn't feel like I played bad. I felt, as a group, we really struggled to make shots that we had been making really since the start of the second half, and sometimes that's basketball. They're a great defensive team. They're gonna be physical with me, they're strong. So that can kind of wear you down through the process of the game. I thought the game felt very choppy. Like, it didn't feel like there was any moments where the crowd could get into it, where we could really get into a flow.
It's not all bad. I think that, considering when we used to play the Vegas Aces, especially this year alone, our first game, and you look back to this, third or fourth game, hats off to our group because we came a lot of different ways on both ends of the floor. And if we could have got, an extra possession here and there offensively, of course, I think that we would have had a better position and, going to get what you guys usually see. But, life happens. Shots don't always fall, and I think it's a part of that game.
Impressively, the game drew another sellout crowd, 17,274, despite it being Wednesday night. We're now in school nights for kids, right? And yet the place was filled from top to bottom. But they didn't see a great performance from the Fever, not like we have seen here in recent weeks. A lot of different factors going into it in this one, but they were still within a few possessions late. They got to within one, but mostly it was a bad second quarter that was costly as they were outscored 21-14 in that period by the Aces headed into the locker room. The other thing was Caitlin Clark and the Fever never really found an offensive rhythm all game long. It was choppy, as Caitlin says, and she finished with just 16 points, shot a career-high 22 field goals, only made 6 of them, and went 1 of 10 from three-point range.
And especially with the type of defense they're going to play, they're going to be physical, they're going to be in your space. We have to set and use screens better. But defensively, I think I'm proud of our group.
I think most of our shots, if you go back and look at them, they all hit the front of the rim. And I think that overtime game the other night just kind of really, they did. There were times they looked really, they were tired. And that, when your shot's falling short like that, that's just a huge indication of that.
Clark's 16 points. It was her lowest output since July 2nd. The opponent, these Las Vegas Aces. So what was it? The same old storyline. They have a good game plan to guard Clark. They also have a lot of talent. That's the number one thing, right? But they were throwing different bodies at her throughout the game. They were being very physical with her. They were making her uncomfortable, and the officials weren't helping out in terms of allowing that contact. And so when she would retaliate and be physical back, she was called for a couple offensive fouls. Did not draw a technical, but asked to be very careful about that with 5 technicals on the season as they wrap up this regular season. But I really think the Aces of any team have done the best job defending Clark that we've seen all season. And it's also because they've done it as a group. It hasn't just been one player pressuring her, making her uncomfortable, all that long. So post-game, I asked Christy Sides, how do you jumpstart the offense? What more do you need to see?
I kind of felt like we kept the ball on one side of the floor a lot more than when we needed to. A lot of times if they were in a pick and roll, they read it, Caitlin, she got it to like A, B, or that post. Like we were looking to go right back to the same side and not get the ball to the opposite side. That's going to be a Kelsey probably. So we just need to do a better job of getting to that second and third side, making them work a little bit harder.
They're all really good defenders. They're physical. They're strong. The offensive fouls are definitely surprising at times. I feel like I do get held and get quite a bit of contact throughout the games, and then you get hit with some of those when you take some contact and give contact back. It is what it is. I mean, I don't know. Like, apparently they see something different, and then we have to use our challenge to try to not let AB have a fifth foul in the third quarter that basically takes her out of the game. We lose a challenge, we lose a timeout. So that's tough as well. But I mean, they're going to be visible. They're going to do it again. It worked. But that's what I should expect at this point. That's kind of what every team does. I think I can use my quickness a little bit better.
This Las Vegas team has all the talent. They have two-time MVP, maybe three-time here soon in A'ja Wilson. She was dominant, finishing with a game-high 27 points, 12 rebounds, and you could see early on in the game things that the Fever can correct moving forward. You think to her getting the ball at the high post and knocking down 4 straight jumpers, free throw line jumpers, wide open. That's her sweet spot. That's easy, and you could count them every single time, as she made 4 in a row. And so after trailing 7-0, after the Aces missed their first 7 shots, they started to get a rhythm, something that the Fever were without for much of this game. Again, it's a 2-game series. So now, while the Fever won't officially hold a practice, mostly because of fatigue to those starters, they will get together, they will watch film, they'll make some corrections, make some adjustments heading into this final matchup of the season in their 4-game series coming up on Friday. But in this one and on Friday, it gives the Fever a first-hand look of what it takes to become a champion, like it did with the Aces, a process that took about 5 years.
I think the one thing I saw at the group down the stretch was a dog mentality to get the next stop. We had, made a stretch and made a really good run down the stretch of the game, and I think that they turned it on during that timeout. And I think that, great teams turn into a different person, a different beast, a different group when you come out of ATOs and we, do certain things and need certain things. And I think, they didn't tuck your quote-unquote tail. They kind of came out in that timeout and kind of went on another run, and I think that's what you see from the best.
Kelsey Mitchell led the team with 24 points, but they didn't get much help outside of their backcourt. In total, they got just, 11 points from their bench, and they need a lot more minutes from their bench. I know in the playoffs, you usually tighten your rotation, but just even to get there, it'd be nice to get a little bit of help from that bench. We're seeing these starters play extensive minutes. Even Caitlin acknowledged that, she took herself out of the game 6 minutes in to get a quick breather and jump back out there, ultimately playing about 38 minutes. If not for that break, she would have been out there again for every single minute. And last game went into overtime. That was 45 minutes that they were out there. Now, we are seeing Timmy Fagbinley contribute some, Erica Wheeler. They still need more out of Katie Lou Samuelson. We saw Christy Wallace for the first time in a couple weeks. I think that's something we'll see over these final 3 games again from Christy Sides, the Fever coach, is can she get a little bit more out of her bench, which could also help keep those starters fresh. They're playing every other day right now. That makes things difficult. You can see them being tired. Sides talked about Caitlin's shot coming up short. Those are all the things that you have to factor in going into Friday, where the Fever are hoping for a much different performance.
The 50-50 balls, the outworking, taking that foul, that aggressive foul, not meaning to hurt anybody, but obviously, we got to be intentional with everything we do going into Friday, and we can't play around with it. I think that we all kind of lapsed, and we kind of took whatever, we took whatever they gave us, and we didn't have to. And so I think going into our next maturation, our next group, and our next phase of Friday, we can't take anything. We have to punch first, and when they do punch back, we got to be able to stand up and get back to it.
I still feel like we haven't really given them the best that we have. So I think Friday is a great opportunity for us to do that.
Friday's game can be seen nationally on ION for those in attendance. Expect certainly another sellout against these Las Vegas Aces. A big crowd of notable people, by the way, in the crowd. Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Jarris Walker of the Pacers, former Colts coach Chuck Pagano, Darius Rucker sitting courtside. Also the Iowa coaches here because of Caitlin. And on the other side, you have 2 Iowa players, including rookie Kate Martin. It's something I plan to write about here in the coming days. But you can watch that game. It's their they have that game, and then Sunday are their final 2 home games in the regular season heading into the playoffs. Then they'll make a quick trip to our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. Then it's on to the playoffs. So we'll see how they respond coming up on Friday. Now make sure you're subscribed to my channel here, that you're also subscribed to my Substack, fieldhousefiles.com, so that whenever I post a story, those stories are delivered right to your inbox right away. Reporting from Gainbridge Fieldhouse, I'm Scott Agness of fieldhousefiles.com.